I want each and every one of you to picture the moment a lot of data teams have already lived through. Think about it. You're coming out of a governance review meeting. Your data is accurate. It is deduplicated. It already lives on the approved system of record. And somebody with the authority to say so has signed off on it as clean. And then, the thing you're actually building on top of that data, the AI agent that is supposed to make one particular call over and over, whether this is flagging which account is actually at risk, deciding which case to get escalated first. That agent keeps hanging back answers nobody quite trusts. And eventually the project quietly stalls anyway. No one can point anymore to a dirty field. The data passed. This gap between data that is genuinely clean and an initiative that will still not fly is exactly what this video is for. Gartner put out a specific claim about that gap, and I want to spend a bit of time and talk about it today. And not because it is news. Actually, this came out in February. I think it is important to talk about it, of when we are standing right now, because that claim has a horizon written into it, and this horizon is actually not some distant day. It is this year. Hey everyone, Petkov here. If you're new to this channel and you're just joining, the short version of what I do is that I spend my time on the operation side of AI, rather than the model side. Because after 15 years inside enterprise IT, I have watched more AI initiatives die from data nobody had actually named a decision for, than from anything wrong with the AI model itself. There is a specific reflex almost every operator reaches for, with a prediction like this one, and it quietly weighs the only part of the forecast that was ever going to help you. Because the reflex is to file the number away and wait for the result. The way you would wait for an election to get called or a quarterly number to land. This reflex doesn't work here, and it changes what the number is actually for. A prediction is not a measurement. Nobody is going to publish a scorecard at the end of this year, confirming that exactly 60% of AI projects get abandoned, because no one is counting every AI project at every company against one shared definition of abandonment, and nobody ever will. Wait for this number to get graded, and you will wait forever, having missed the point while you waited. The value in a forecast like this was never the number. It is the mechanism sitting inside it, the actual reason a project would die. And that mechanism is something you can go check on your own system this week. The forecast's own horizon run through this year. And this is a good reason enough to stop treating this as a someday problem. But knowing that the forecast itself will never get graded is not the same as knowing which number sitting inside the same research you actually can act on this week. Here it is, let's talk about it. And it's not a forecast about the future. It is a management of right now. Gartner asked 248 data management leaders a direct question in the third quarter of 2024. 63% of them said one of two things. It's either they don't have the right data management practices in place for AI, or they're just simply not sure whether they do. Read that again, slowly, because it is not a story about incompetence. It is an honest statement. This is a clear majority of the people whose actual job is data at real organizations, raising their hand and pretty much saying, we do not know if what we have is right for this. If you want, flip it around, and at most 37% could say with real confidence that their practices are ready. If you have ever sat in this situation, wondering where your own data operation is actually ready for what you're pointing AI at, this discomfort, it is not sign of something wrong with you specifically. It is actually the majority position among the people whose job this literally is. But eventually this discomfort only proves that nobody has named the one question which actually decides it. This question was never the question clean data was built to answer. So if we move on, here is the distinction Gartner is actually drawing. And once you see it, it is hard to unsee it. Data management, the kind most companies have been doing for decades, and generally do responsibly well. Ask 3 questions of a piece of data. Is it accurate? Is it governed? Meaning somebody owns it and you can trust the process that produces it. And finally, is it available? Which means the people and systems that need it can actually get to it. If you answer yes to those 3, and for most of the history of enterprise data, you are done. You had clean data. AI-ready data asks a different question on top of all 3. And Gartner is explicit that this is not a stricter version of the same question. It is actually a completely different requirement. The question is whether the data is fit for one specific, named decision that the machine is going to make over and over, without a person having to check each instance, not whether it is genuinely good data. Fit for this decision, made many times, with this little human review sitting in the loop. So this is exactly why a dataset can be completely, honestly clean. It can pass every audit anyone runs, and still at the same time not be AI ready, because nobody ever sat down and named the decision first. AI ready tells you it was built and maintained well for a specific job you can actually write down. And most data in most companies was never built with one repeated machine decision in mind. Because let's be honest, until recently there was never such a decision ask. If you have watched the clean data episode earlier in this series, you already have half of this. An AI agent is not a brain, it is an amplifier. And it will scale whatever is already sitting in your system instead of judging it first. Essentially, Gartner's finding sits one step past that. It is not enough to feed the amplifier something clean in general. You have to know specifically what you're amplifying it for. And if this is the first video of mine you have landed on, the short version is that there are 5 layers underneath any AI initiative. This is your governance, your clean data, your standardized processes, controls, and finally an operating model. This whole video lives inside the second one. And eventually knowing the difference between clean and AI ready in the abstract is not the same as being able to spot the exact field inside your own systems, where a dataset is honestly clean and quietly wrong for the job somebody just handed it. Let's make this even more concrete, with the kind of thing I think a lot of operators will recognize. I want you to picture an account year field sitting inside an ordinary CRM. It marks whether an account is enterprise or mid-market. And finance built that field years ago to decide which discount schedule applies at renewal. And for this one job, it is completely reliable, accurate on every record, one clean owner, fully governed, exactly what a data audit wants to see. Then somebody stands up to a support routing agent and points it at the same field, because on paper, it looks like the obvious signal for how fast the case should get escalated and to which team. Except that to find out that the field was frozen at the moment each deal was signed. Nobody ever built it to track what happened to the account afterwards. So eventually an account that quietly grew into one of the busiest users on the books over the years is still sitting there tucked mid-market. Because nothing about that field's original job ever required anyone to touch it again. The agent reads it exactly as written and routes the case to the slower queue, faithfully and with confidence. And it is being completely honest about data that the governance review would sign off on today, without a second look. Nothing, I repeat, nothing in that field was ever wrong. It was accurate for the decision it was built for. In a system nobody had connected to a support agent yet, and it was just quietly repurposed for a decision nobody had checked it against first. So let's summarize this once again. AI data is not clean data. It is data that is ready for a decision you can name. So here is your next move, and like every Monday move on this channel, it costs absolutely nothing and it takes an afternoon. I call this one specifically the naming test, because this is exactly what it checks. Whether you can name the decision before you ever point a machine at it. Take the one AI use case you actually care about right now. The one somebody is already pitching you, or already running, and write down, in one sentence, the specific decision it makes, repeatedly, without a person checking every instance. Don't try it helps with support or it helps with renewals. The actual decision, which queue this case goes to, which account gets flagged this week, which supplier gets consolidated with which. Then and only then, list the 2 or 3 fields that decisions actually depend on, and then go look for those specific fields, not your data catalog in general, and not last year's governance score. Are they populated for the records that matter right now? Are they current? Or were they set once and forgotten? Would 2 different systems in your business give you the same answer if you ask them both today? If you cannot finish that first sentence, the one naming the decision, that is the finding. It's not a data problem, a naming problem, and it is the cheapest one on this whole list to fix. Because it only costs a sentence, not a budget line. So again, please name it. Run through the test. Name it before you point the machine at it. Now, let's go to the real first question, which is really the self-check I would put in front of any team before they take a Gartner number like this into their own bedroom. Now, I want to talk about the first real question, which is in fact the self-check I would put in front of any team before they take a Gartner number like this into their own boardroom. Because I think most teams ask their own first question here too. The question that gets asked first is almost always, is our data clean? And plenty of teams can honestly answer yes to that and still be nowhere close to AI ready, which is the entire point of that video. The real first question is narrow and harder to dodge. Can you name in one sentence the specific repeated decision you are handing to a machine? And can you then point at the exact field that decisions depend on? If you want a structured way to walk through that against your own system instead of guessing, I have already put together a free AI-ready operations assessment. I'll make sure I post the link in the description. This is the checklist, and it will only take 10 to 15 minutes of your own honest answers. And it will tell you more than any vendor demo will, because a vendor demo runs on data somebody already cleaned up specifically to be shown to you. So if you want to take one thing from this Gartner number, with a deadline sitting inside this year, let it be this one. The 60% is not going to be graded, and you shouldn't wait around it for somebody to grade it. But the 63% is a mirror, and the distinction underneath both numbers is actually a test. You can take away, and you can run your own systems by Friday. This is the whole reason one forecast is worth a video. Not because it is a news, but because it hands you a mechanism you can go check today on your own data for free. Your AI maturity will never exceed your operational maturity. Actually naming the decision before you point the machine at the data underneath it is exactly what that law looks like at ground level. None of this is enterprise only. The same naming test applies if you're running a 2-person team, automating your own intake. Or let's say building an agent into a freelance workflow. Or maybe wiring something up at home that is going to make a call more than once without you watching it. The scale is changing, but the discipline doesn't change. If this was useful, please consider subscribing, because this season keeps testing claims exactly like this one against what actually holds up when you point them at a real operation. Run the free AI-ready operations assessment in the description to score your own systems. And in the end, if clean data turns out to be your gap, the deeper master data quality material in the operator library is the natural next step. I'll post that link below as well. And finally, if you have lived this one, and I'm sure many of you have, if you have ever caught a field that was accurate for the job it was built for, and dead wrong for the machine decision somebody quietly pointed at it, then please don't be a stranger. Drop me a note in the comments and tell me which field it was, because I read them and I will come back to you. And honestly, a good half of what ends up in these episodes started as somebody writing in about their own Tuesday. And remember, don't build better AI, build better operations.